Is revenue recognition screwing up your retention schedules? Let's find out in today's edition of SaaS Metrics School, where SaaS operators master financial metrics to make more money, get promoted, and grow their SaaS business. Welcome, Ben Murray here. Had a question over the weekend from a SaaS founder at a growing, nice SaaS business and talking about retention and revenue recognition schedules, or our revenue recognition, because we know when we apply revenue recognition, that's not necessarily nice on our retention schedules. For example, if we issue a credit note and we have to reverse some revenue that flows through our RevRec schedules, flows through retention. If, say, a customer finally wants to be invoiced, they've been using our subscription, and this was a renewal situation, which is very common. And then we invoice them, and then we're catching up on that revenue recognition. So, a lot of scenarios where the RevRec is sound, but just how we contract an invoice is not necessarily nice, doesn't play well with retention. So, what can we do here? Well, first, we still have to follow revenue recognition principles. We don't want to change our RevRec for the sake of retention, even though we know retention is so important to get that right in SaaS companies, but RevRec even more important. So what can we do here? So when I was at a CFO at one company where we're selling to private equity, we were on daily RevRec. We had great revenue recognition in place, went through many audits every year. And in the Q of E process, the quality of earnings, in that process, we created, you could say, a pro forma MRR schedule that got rid of some of that accounting noise, catch-ups, credit memos, prior period adjustments, daily revenue recognition. And it was still sourced from our invoice data, so we could tie it back to that source of truth. And that's what's so important, is tying our retention numbers back to a source of truth. So we took the invoice data and really created a pro forma MRR schedule. And maybe this varied a little bit from our revenue recognition schedule that would be pulled from accounting, but it was, you could say, smoothed out a bit because, again, we're taking out that accounting noise. And then we can feed that into our retention calculations. And then we have retention numbers that we can rely on. So we have kind of two ways here. One, running it just based off our accrual gap books and that RevRec, and then a pro forma schedule that's going to smooth things out and make our retention, I guess, a little bit more valid when we look at those numbers. So what should we do in this case? How can we create that pro forma MRR schedule? And this comes up a lot with SaaS founders where maybe they don't have the best contracting in place, invoicing process, and we've got all this noise that flows into our retention. And then really we can't, those retention numbers are meaningless. So we have to create a pro forma schedule, which is really meaning just like kind of an offline schedule away from our accounting system. So one way I do this is I actually created an application where you can upload invoice data, customer name, invoice number, subscription start date, end date, amount, and it'll create your MRR schedule and calculate your retention. And so I'll put a link in the show notes to a tutorial where you can learn a little bit more about that. And through that process, in that tutorial, you can then sign up for the application at backofficetools.com. So this is really important to get right. I think this is coming up more and more. So again, if you have any questions on this, email me at ben@thesaascfo.com. And again, make sure you check out those show notes to that link to a tutorial if you want to create a pro forma MRR schedule. So thanks for joining today. Hope you found value in SaaS Metrics School. Thanks.